על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל. היא מדינת ישראל.
Here in Independence Hall, David Ben-Gurion declared the birth of the modern state of Israel. For the first time in nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people had a nation.
He chose the words, "We hereby declare the establishment," it says here, "of a Jewish state in the land of Israel to be known as the State of Israel." This was the birth of a Jewish state. As for all Jews, Ben-Gurion was standing here as the voice of 11 million Jews around the world who had no voice, who had no address, and nowhere to go to.
I spoke with Isaac Dror, who leads the education effort here.
It was promised to us by God. We are the only people in the history of the world that live on the same land, speak in the same language, and believe in the same God more than 3,000 years.
We are in a historic setting here. Where are we and what happened?
This is the room where the Jewish state of Israel was born 70 years ago. In this tiny room with these same furnitures, a ceremony that lasted 32 minutes and shook the world.
As British rulers left Israel that day, 5 Arab armies invaded.
So it's like when you mix the happiest day for the Jewish people, one of the greatest moments for our nation in modern times, with one of the most dangerous and sad days when Israel was that close to a complete annihilation.
Why this building? Why here? Why Tel Aviv?
This building was simply the safest auditorium in the city of Tel Aviv.
Who were the people that were here?
Most of them people from around Tel Aviv, because they could not invite people from Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was disconnected. Only 350 of them were lucky enough to be squeezed in the room with no air conditioning.
And among the crowd of witnesses was Yael Sharet.
Her father was on the stage here, Moshe Sharet. He was the right hand of Ben-Gurion and the kind of the foreign minister of the provisional government of Israel. And when they came to the ceremony, they came with an invitation. And it says here, "We are honored to invite you to the ceremony of independence." And then it goes, "We ask you to keep it as a secret."
Really?
You don't want thousands of people to swarm the street when you expect an air raid later that day. And then it says the invitation is personal, like come alone. And here you have Mr. Moshe Sharet, who brought his daughter with him. And not only his daughter, but his sister as well. And Moshe Sharet said they will share the same chair.
I met Yael Sharet Medini at her home near Tel Aviv.
Here is my aunt, and this is my forehead. Hopefully there's something behind it, as I say. And we share the chair there, next to the wall.
She told me how just the day before, her father dictated and Yael wrote a draft of the Declaration of Independence.
This is my father's version of the Declaration. The one that he dictated to me, this is my handwriting. This is a photocopy of the original. Yeah. The original is in the archive.
And this took you how long?
I think that I sat there about 3/4 of an hour to an hour.
Yael simply calls herself a handmaiden of history. Well, how old were you?
17 and a half. I wasn't interested in this. I knew that this is what's going to happen from the age of 0, that we are going to have a state and we are rightfully here.
During that time, she and her family lived in New York, where her father would scour the United Nations, convincing countries to support the soon-to-be-born state. Do you remember the event itself, when Ben-Gurion stood up and read?
It's epic. It's really epic. It's poetry, actually. The only time I was really moved, I must say, was when the Rabbi Levine made the old age Jewish blessing, Shechianu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
That ancient Jewish prayer, recited on momentous occasions, thanks God who has given us life, sustained us, and allowed us to reach this day.
I'm not religious, but this blessing has an echo of generations.
Did you sing?
Hatikva, yes. And then everybody stood up, and it was the anthem, the national anthem.
The very next day, which was the Sabbath, President Harry Truman became the first world leader to recognize Israel.
The Pentagon and the State Department truly believed that Ben-Gurion, the leader of Israel, is leading the world into a new catastrophe. One person, however, thought differently. His name was Harry Truman. He understood something that most of his top advisors and ministers failed to see. This is truly a prophecy being realized.
70 years later, it's clear that Truman was right.
We are faster, better, prettier than ever today. The economy of Israel is doing wonderfully well, what they call a startup nation. And now we see Israel standing, and thanks God, together with the Americans, in the spirit of those countries who are leading. Suddenly people understand why we are here.
Scott Ross for CBN in Tel Aviv.